Hey, this week's episode is brought to you by True Niagen and can be found on drdrew.com. Click on the banner to see how you can get this amazing product today. Also, Bergamet Sport is something we can all approve of. 10% off on drdrew.com. Check it out.
The Swole Patrol, it's the Swole Patrol. Now we're talking to a girl with a big ass, and she made it the proper way. She had negative ass, I can't believe it. Now I go on Instagram and look at Abby's ass, and I have to go be by myself so my wife doesn't see me masturbate to pictures of her ass and her thighs. Oh yeah.
Woo!
That was amazing.
Right,
that was a really good song. Good freestyle.
It is the Swole Patrol. Abby Pollock, our guest. Vinny Tortorich filling in for Dr. Drew, who is doing Teen Mom bullshit. But we love Dr. Drew in his absence. I hope he's not getting too much fan criticism by all the Teen Mom heads. So, Dr. Drew, wherever you are, stay strong, brother. Vinny Tortorich is here at Vinny Tortorich on Instagram and Twitter. And also keep your eyes open. He has already gotten the funding. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a round of applause for Fat, a documentary. I'm very excited for the film. And once again, our guest is Abby Pollock. She is at Ampolo on their Instagram, which is where I recommend you first get in touch with this woman because the pictures and the videos are hard to believe. And I mean that sincerely, Abby Pollock. I cannot believe
Mike, hang on.
Yes.
Hang on. As you know, I have a degree in physical education, one in exercise physiology and nutrition.
Yes.
I'm a smart dude.
Yes.
But there's a part of the anatomy that I wasn't aware of until about a week ago.
Yes.
And Serena and I have not stopped talking about it. It only appears
Clitoris,
on women.
yes?
No, I knew about the clitoris. I found that about 3 years ago.
Okay, I'm still looking for it.
Yeah, by accident, I was like Magellan down there one night, and I found the clit, and I went, what is this? You know, it was like a speed bump on my way, literally. And but I figured out the clit. It only took me 40 years.
Yes.
Sorry, Abby.
I'm still working on it.
Abby, are you old enough that we're having this conversation?
I know.
We're all good. We're all good.
Okay, because, all right. But do you know what the Toblerone is?
I don't know what the Toblerone is.
Abby, do you know what the Toblerone is?
No, but I'm curious.
Okay, this is a new thing on Instagram. I just learned. And Serena came to me. She goes, in her British accent, do I have a Toblerone? And it turns out she does. It's where these women wear like the G-string up the back. It could be like the one-piece G-string. They take a photo from behind, you know, somehow the selfie in the mirror with the behind them. And it's like the triangle between the top of their vag and how their legs come in. So you have to have that little gap right there. Right? Okay. Right now, Susan is showing us her Toblerone. Susan, I don't think Drew would appreciate this. Please put your clothes back on.
See?
Jesus Christ, Susan.
There it is.
But look it up, Susan. I'm not making this. She's looking it up right now.
Now I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about?
Because you know why they call it that? It's like a Toblerone.
It looks like a Toblerone.
Yes.
Yeah, if you could fit a Toblerone. And you being an ass model and everything, Abby, we need to see Toblerone photos of you on your Instagram. Is that correct, Mike? Or
I'm okay with that. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to put Abby in an uncomfortable position, but
this is something that I am very new to. I mean, the only thing I was really aware of is that really uncomfortable amount of camel toe you get from hiking your gym pants up too high. But this is a new concept.
Yeah, you're speaking my language.
No, I was always told I had it.
Okay.
And then you also have a little gap between your legs, so your legs go.
Yeah, exactly. You're supposed to have that. That's how you know you got it going on.
In good shape.
But I learned from Adam Carolla that Drew is a man of exquisite passion.
Oh, yes.
And they still won't tell me, what does that mean?
It means that Susan often is walking funny from Drew pounding it out so hard.
Drew is like a 60-year-old dude now, right?
My Toblerone alive.
Yeah. Dr. Drew has been... Susan's been in traction before. She's actually been put in full traction.
We were talking about it the other day at Corolla with Drew. He turned purple.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about his purple helmet of passion.
No.
I'm talking he turned purple. Yeah.
Especially after having prostate surgery.
Yeah, well now
he could still
he can still pat it out, and now Drew doesn't shoot loads.
And the protein
Really?
diet has made his penis bigger, I swear to God.
Oh my God! Can we
Really?
talk to our guest? Is that
Wait, hang
do you
on.
think it's possible?
Oh, and by the way, Drew's stuck in an airport. There's severe thunderstorm pods and a tornado.
Oh.
Is he watching us right now?
Oh, wait, he's jumping on the plane.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, that's a Drew update.
I know.
Listen to me.
We'll keep you posted.
Everyone knows we could sit and talk about how Drew has a huge cock and puts in work all day. We could
trying
talk
to
about
segue into
we could
something
talk
else.
about the Toblerone, but let us talk first about Abby Pollock, who is our guest. Abby Pollock at Abby Pollock Fit at AMPOLLO. AMPOLLO.
It's like an acronym, some
Yes.
sort of thing for my name.
My Mexican side wanted to read it as Ampollo, but
Yep. I've heard about the pollo reference before.
but Transformation Nation, tell us about it in a nutshell before we get into like the nuts and bolts of what makes you.
Yeah, so basically this is the company that I started, I guess, just about a year and a half ago. And it's kind of like my answer to a lot of the fitness programs that just cater to delivering motivation and giving you a workout plan and giving you a nutrition plan and saying, hey, follow this, it's going to get you results. That wasn't really something that I could follow or I could really feel comfortable delivering. So it's where, in my opinion, motivation meets the education side of fitness. Kind of delivering people that full circle of what they need to actually achieve and keep their results long term.
That's it sounds like a worthy endeavor for sure. What got you started into this world? Because you were an engineering student, am I right?
Yeah, so I was at U of T, so University of Toronto. I'm from Canada, for mechanical engineering, and I did graduate from that a couple of years back now. So I was in that, and it was not intentional or planned in any way, really. Part of, I guess, it was a little bit grim, I guess, how I got into that, but part of that was I'd been working with my father's company in the engineering side of what he did. So he owned a food service company, and he kind of specialized in, I guess, the magic of little things, right? So forks, knives, garbage bags, anything you'd see in a restaurant that's not food. So I've been working there. I've been doing, I guess, the design and manufacturing of a lot of the products, traveling to Asia often, kind of working through that. But he got cancer, and things, they took a turn for the worse, as they often do. So the position I've been working in wasn't really a viable option. So I guess that transition kind of happened the January of my final year in school. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a bit lost, if we're going to be honest with ourselves. And I felt like in my heart, I'm like, I need a change. I need to do something very, very different, which is so out of the usual for me. I'm not an impulsive person at all, really. And I'd started this fitness Instagram, right, in my first year of university, mainly as an accountability tool. Straight up, I was posting ass shots, like literally every other picture. But as I continued posting, my page did continue to grow, right, especially as I kind of moved more into the evidence-based side of fitness and nutrition. So I thought, okay, this is super weird, but would I ever consider working in this industry? And at first, I the firm answer, no. I'm not going to go to 5 years of engineering just to work in fitness, I thought to myself. But I don't know, I couldn't shake the idea, right? So I set some ground rules. I wanted to do things differently. I didn't want to be kind of like another voice in the echo chamber that's women's fitness and health for the most part. And I really wanted to keep it based in science, but still accessible to the people who didn't have a technical background. So from where I started to where I'm at now, I started with small group coaching, working with groups of usually 10 to 20 women. Then over the course of the next year, I kind of refined my approach. I learned more about, I guess, the online business side of things. And now the TFN team, I think we're going on maybe 5,000 women, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
What is your approach, Abby, if you don't mind me asking?
Like approach to the business side, or
no, just the fitness. It's a fitness show, so let's talk about the fitness side.
Yeah. So with the TFN team, the way I explain it is it's the why behind what you're doing. And I know it sounds so simple, but it's something very simple that when I was first starting my fitness journey, so many programs and so many articles and so many resources just failed to provide. They said, do this because I said so, or they said, do this because it works for me. And I found that in the fitness space, there was just so much anecdotal evidence and so much that I either just could not relate to. I'm like, I look nothing like you. There's no way that what worked for you is going to work for me. Or it straight up sounded like bullshit. I said, okay, why would I do that with my diet if I don't have to? And so our entire program is focused on educating our members and taking them from kind of where they're at now, whether that's somebody who has never been into fitness, has never, never been into any of that, and helping them develop the habits that they need to kind of just get to that next level, right? Taking them from being kind of your average person and getting them to being fit, and then taking them from being fit to being, somebody who could become an athlete, right? Somebody who knows how to apply, I don't know how technical you want me to get, but somebody who knows how to apply, periodization, who knows how to adapt their programs over time, who knows how to eat in line with their goals, even if that doesn't mean, following a strict meal plan or, always eating the same foods or anything like that. It really is teaching them from all angles how to make this a lifestyle and how to make it something that they are in control of.
So what is your approach? You mentioned periodization. And that's just a broad term. In what respect? So let's say it sounds like you're dealing more with women than men. Should I assume that? Or okay, give me the general person you're getting up. 18 to 22-year-olds. What are you finding, and what are they looking for? Give me that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so we usually work girls who are kind of either girls who can relate directly to me, so girls who are like 20 to 24, or we get a lot of new moms or a lot of moms with young kids. So those are kind of the two main groups of women I'd say that we work with. So if you want like age ranges 20 to 24, and like I'd say 30 to 34, if I had to kind of put a number on it. And so
early 20s through mid 30s, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
And what do those women want?
So what a lot of them ultimately want is, I think they can really relate to where I felt when I started my fitness journey. They said, I feel like I can't trust anyone. I feel like everything's a scam. And I feel like I just can't fundamentally relate to these fitness models, these girls whose lives are, going on photo shoots, going to like Bali and going on retreats. And, they've always been fit. So how could I ever possibly relate to them? They don't provide any of the explanation behind what they do. And I can't really see how I could bridge the gap between where I'm at now and where they are and where I want to be, right? And so all of my social media now, the Instagram, the YouTube, those are my two main platforms. Those focus on explaining how to achieve very specific topics, right? Whether it's how to go through, a booty-focused weightlifting workout and some of the biomechanics behind that, or whether it's, how to practice intermittent fasting or how to structure your meals. It's always kind of giving them the why behind what they're doing so that they can actually have that confidence to start and see it through rather than just kind of falling off at, the traditional 2-week mark that every diet seems to fail.
Right. So did you have a question, Mike?
No. I'm
all right. So
kicking it off perfectly.
So let's say I'm a 22-year-old girl and I want to start your program. Let's say I'm 5'7". I weigh 175 pounds. I have a few pounds to lose.
Nice.
Mike likes that, but he's half Mexican. They like a little they have like a little punch,
I need a little beef.
Little cushion for the pushing.
What
would you advise me to do?
Yeah. Okay. So if you're pretty new to fitness, the way that our program works is we have two main bundles.
I'm a couch potato. I'm very new to fitness at this point.
Okay, perfect. I got you. So you'd be on the beginner plan. And the way that we actually break this program down is we have kind of within the program, there's 3 goal-specific paths you can take. And we defined these paths based on the most common goals or like wish lists that women had, the transformations they wanted to achieve. So, for a 175-pound woman at 5'7", you probably want to lose, maybe 20 pounds, maybe 30 pounds, right? It depends on your personal preference, but we'd probably put you on the momentum fat loss plan. So what that's designed to do is, adjust your calories down, create a calorie deficit. We start everyone on a relatively structured meal plan, as well as on a structured weightlifting plan. We don't start with any cardio right from the get-go because that's something that a lot of people have a resistance to. And it's just something that when they see it can be something that discourages them early on. So rather than focusing on doing a lot of activity or adding a lot of new items to their schedule, we focus on creating that calorie deficit and kicking off their weight loss via nutrition. We focus on keeping them sculpted rather than, getting them towards skinny fat by lifting weights in the gym. And as they progress through that beginner program, it's about 4 months long. What we do is we move them from following a structured meal plan to then following kind of templated recipes that they're adjusting.
But what is the structured meal plan? Because
Yeah.
you did mention, and I'm just being devil's advocate here,
Yeah,
so I don't mean to sound anything other than that, but you mentioned that every diet fails because after 2 weeks people can't take it. But then you mentioned calorie in, calorie out, which means that you're asking a human to starve. How do you keep them going past the 2 weeks?
Yeah. So I get this. So calories in versus calories out. It does come down to science, right? It comes down to the amount of fuel that your body requires, right? In order to lose weight, it is kind of simple math. Of course, you can get into the nitty gritties, thermodynamics between what actually happens in your body. But when you actually look at it, in order to lose weight, you do have to be at a calorie deficit. This is what the current body of literature does suggest. It's what's commonly accepted, and it is what's proven. And where people commonly run into issues with calorie tracking interventions is when they're not really eating the right combination of macronutrients, or they're not eating foods that are satiating, right? And so what we focus on at every step of the journey is teaching them habits that actually make this sustainable, right? There are things that happen as people lose weight, especially if they're losing a significant amount of weight, say on the order of 20 pounds or more. They're going to experience a downregulation in their BMR over time, the basal metabolic rate, the amount of calories that they burn just sitting, breathing, existing. They're going to experience a decrease in their.
But if they're only losing fat, the basal metabolic rate doesn't come into effect. And the real problem I'm having right now, and I need you to explain this to me, is that it's been proven over and over again that using the fact that you're just burning your body out of calories. In other words, let's say you have a car. I'm going to give you an example instead of doing it any other way. You have a car. You run the car out of gas. How's the car going to continue running unless you put more gas in it?
Right. So why? It's not that we're recommending you don't eat. I'd never put somebody on a starvation plan.
You said the laws of thermodynamics, so I'm going off of what you said.
So if you run somebody down to zero, of course, it won't last. But there is a way to go about creating subtle shifts in your calorie intake that can create change. Right? We're not recommending a reckless amount of calorie restriction. We're not putting people on 1,000-calorie a day diets. That's not sustainable. That's not really setting people up for something that's going to work long term. Right. What we do is we take on a much more moderate and something that's actually been backed up by. I should actually have the studies. If you guys have a screen over there, you can pull them up.
I don't think you understand. I've been doing this for 37 years. I've read every study that's out there.
Okay.
I don't need to see a new study.
Where's the issue then? What's the better question? What's the better question is, what do you recommend beyond adjusting daily activity levels? Because not everybody has time.
I didn't realize we were up to daily activity levels because you said you don't start on exercise.
What do you recommend beyond adjusting calories, adjusting daily activity levels? Because simply adjusting the macronutrient split, that's not going to have a significant impact. That might affect your...
I disagree wholeheartedly because the macronutrients is what controls... We gain and lose weight based on hormones. It has nothing to do with the basal metabolic rate, which if you're just losing fat, it doesn't really change that much. But, and that whole idea of building a bigger engine to burn more gas doesn't work because at the end of the day, we're the only animal in the animal kingdom that thinks it's a good day when we don't get enough to eat. Can you imagine a lion going back to the den telling its lion cubs, hey, I did great today. I didn't kill anything. You guys are going to starve to death. Humans are the only ones that seem to think that not getting enough to eat is a good idea, when in fact, the way we lose weight is based on hormones, and the only way we can shift those hormones is by changing what the hormones are doing through macronutrients, eating more fat, not less fat.
Yeah, I had a feeling you'd go that direction. So that's an interesting approach. Clearly that is something that has worked for you. And I think what's important...
No, it hasn't worked for me. It works.
Right, it works. And I think something that's important, when you are in the fitness industry and when you are somebody who practices kind of an evidence-based approach, is to keep an open mindset. There is more than one way to achieve a certain result. Right?
No, I understand that, but I was going off of what you said.
Right. And I'm saying this is how we do things, which is what you asked. this is what's gotten results. And of course, I believe there could always be another approach. I'm very, very clear, when I am doing my education via YouTube or Instagram, and I say, hey, this is what I found. This is what I've experienced. Here's the science that suggests, yes, this could work. There's always going to be another study you can find that will be against something. There's always going to be a different way you could interpret the research. But
I couldn't agree more. But when you talk evidence-based and you talk to a guy who's been doing this for 37 years and largely only working in weight loss and getting thousands of people to lose hundreds of pounds each, and you can't sit there and say that calorie in, calorie out is the way to go because it's never worked. There's no study to prove it, not one.
Right. So I think we have a bit of a disagreement there. And if we're not going to pull up studies, and if we're not going to get into maybe a deeper debate, I don't think that's really something.
Okay, pull up a study. Which one would you like to pull up?
All right, let's go back into my YouTube notes. Let's see.
Talking to Abby Pollock, by the way, at AMPOLLO on Twitter and Instagram. Oh, excuse me, on Instagram. And on Twitter, she is at Abby Pollock Fit.
Yeah, we don't use that one too much.
Oh, okay. Do you have the AMPOLLO on Twitter as well?
No, I don't have that one.
Instagram's a spot though for Abby. I continually just scroll through all her pictures. I'm a big fan.
Okay. So
I'm a big fan of her photos too. Very, very nice. I wanted to get into squats and lunges with her, but we went down a bad road. So now we got to clear this up before we can get to squats and lunges.
Oh, Vinny.
Vinny, what have you done?
I have no idea. I didn't mean to.
So those are two that I just pulled up from my most recent video. This one we didn't go too in depth. And I think what's important to understand is the limitation of these studies is that these were on healthy populations. These are not people who were obese. That's not most of the people that I deal with. Most of the people I'm working with tend to be in the category of 10 to 15 pounds to lose. But those are just a couple that I pulled up that were relevant to my most recent video.
Okay, that's fine. Do we have a study yet, Susan? Over there?
I just texted them.
Oh,
I
you
don't know
texted
if it
them?
works.
Okay, got it.
There's a lot of no talking on the show where we should be talking.
Well, that's your fault, you fucker.
Sing
I
again.
can't see the screen, guys. I can't see the screen. I don't know. I don't know if there is a video on here that I can see.
I've got it on my phone.
I have one. Dr. Lane Norton put up one that's pretty.
He's, you know what, Lane has done a really good job for breaking down a lot of the barriers, I'd say, in the bodybuilding world. And he's even gone kind of mainstream, on the bodybuilding.com with people who, are your like casual kind of gym bros and people who do cling to a lot of the old school bodybuilding methodologies. He's done a really great job and was actually one of the first guys I followed when I competed in bodybuilding.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Lane. Lane, if you are unfamiliar, he's
Instagram.
at BioLane on Twitter, and that's his best, I think, his best source of information. Lane and I would say Alan Aragon are the two guys that I've been big on for a long time, but I'm trying to look for the one.
I'm not understanding. I'm not looking at a study here, Susan.
Okay, let me try the other one.
Oh, you guys are so
we need to move on because
she did talk about it. The people that she caters to are women who have just had kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're raising kids, and
they're 5
making
pounds,
macaroni and
15.
cheese, and
Okay.
they're driving to.
She's right about that.
And
You're right.
Sometimes you can't make yourself an all meat diet on the side. And
Right. I think we went down a bad road there.
But
I think
depending on who you're catering to and what they can afford to eat. Not everybody can have steak and bacon.
Well, no,
not everyone. We're not saying that.
A new mother is a particularly hard group to deal with.
We were having a conversation about calorie in, calorie out, which whenever I hear that, my brain just goes
or
crazy.
Learning portions or knowing cutting out.
Let's take studies out of it, Abby, and I'll tell you where I'm coming from. If you want to take a study, this is not a real study, but we'll take it from an epidemiological standpoint, Weight Watchers, which has been around for, let's call it 45, 50 years. Weight Watchers, to their own admission, only have a 2%, but it could be a 0% success rate. And the reason for that is calorie in, calorie out. So no matter how much you lose on that diet, eventually the human brain won't allow you to starve it. And unless you become an anorexic and kill yourself, you're going to gain the weight back. A better epidemiological study, and is more controlled, is what they did to those poor people on the show Biggest Loser, where they would get them to lose a lot of weight.
Yeah,
really
I
fast.
agree with you. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at. So I wasn't trying to argue with you. I was just, whenever I hear calorie in, calorie out, I just freeze up. Because,
and I totally get that.
Right. Yeah. Because I know it not to be true. But look, if you have 15, 20 pounds to lose because you had a baby, totally, especially if you're young, especially if you're working out, and you want to look the way you look, which is amazing. Yeah, that's true. But we were talking in the last show with this guy, Steve Zim, who's here in California. So much conflating goes on. Right? Mm-hmm. And that happens over and over and over again. And I just want a message to be clear where people aren't just conflating things and just putting it out there. And I'm not trying to say you were doing that. We just went down a bad road, and I couldn't figure out a way to get out of it without really bad questions, if that makes any sense. I'm sorry.
I agree with you. I think a lot of things can be taken out of context. And I think, without going through the full extent of, what somebody's approach is and what the macronutrient split is they're eating and how they're recommending you maintain that long term, I think it is really difficult to get an accurate depiction of it. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Good. Let's move on to your how you got your ass to be, as Mike put it.
It's amazing.
A negative ass.
It defies logic. You have one of the best asses I've ever seen in my life, but one of the best physiques, period. But most people, especially women who have beautiful, firm, and luscious badonkadunks, they're born that way. My wife being one of them. My wife has a giant ass. I get high-fived by black guys all the time.
Yeah. That's huge. When a black guy...
I often...
That's respect.
Yeah, they just give me high fives for no reason. But she was born that way. She had kind of genetic... You put up pictures of your initial transformation. You had negative ass. I don't even understand how somebody...
did. It was concave, man.
Yeah, you have concave ass, and then you went in and you made yourself into this beautiful, lower-bodied, centric woman, and I just want to get some of the insight into your weight training protocol and a diet that would not only keep you lean while you're dealing with that much hypertrophy in your lower body, but also kind of a booty centric workout, which I think a lot of women nowadays are really focused on.
Yeah, so I think this might actually be a good point to kind of touch on, I guess, some of the issues definitely that have been had with calories in versus calories out, and one of the big ones. That isn't really, it's kind of an isolated thing to people who are in the bodybuilding space and the weightlifting space. But one of the kind of long-standing beliefs that a lot of women actually fall prey to is that, in order to get big, you got to eat big, or you got to do a dirty bulk. Like, these are kind of like the lingo that you hear thrown around like the locker room.
And that drives me nuts. It's old bodybuilding dogma, and it needs to go away. It needs to stop.
It's got to stop. And especially when... What kills me is when I see these guys, dropping this knowledge, right, on their girlfriends, and you gotta eat big to get big, dirty bulk all the way, like weekly cheat meal, and you see these people gorging themselves on ridiculous amounts of calories. Really, a trend that's been going around on YouTube is the 10,000 calorie challenge, which that just makes me really uncomfortable.
It makes me shiver thinking about it. Yeah,
it's no thanks. But so, anyways. That's one of the biggest mistakes people made. And one of the things that I'd say really did make if we want to call it like a lean bulk, one of the things that really did make that transformation so successful was the fact that I didn't make any drastic changes to my diet. I really didn't. I focused on progressively increasing my volume over time with my weightlifting. I was following a structured program that was based mainly around compound lift. So I wasn't out there with my little booty band doing my glute activation at the gym. I was lifting heavy weights. I was getting stronger. I was eating a little bit more in terms of food. And I think one of the other things too that you guys mentioned before we went live, in these pictures and then before pictures, especially, I don't know which one you have up, but I'll send this to Susan, but the 2012 to 2014. So I'm going to send this over right now so you guys can just take a look at that one. Let me know when you get it. But in these pictures, like, you can tell that I didn't necessarily look healthy in the before, right?
Sure.
My head looked really big, which is one of the first things that a lot of people know.
I mentioned, I'll tell the audience, I mentioned that you looked as though you had an eating disorder in the first photo.
And it has all the telltale signs. I mean, it was a really grainy picture, that old school iPhone though, but my hair didn't look healthy. It looked like there was a lot of breakage. My skin was horrible. When you start, seeing kind of that weird torso with a little bit of bloat in the tummy, but not a lot of fat elsewhere, that can be kind of related to disordered eating behaviors, right? Bad digestion. So yeah, that was something that I was dealing with at the time. And when you come out of an eating disorder, I've actually seen this. I wish I hadn't seen it, but I've seen a lot of it in, I guess, the bodybuilding industry. A lot of women who have previously dealt with eating disorders who get into more of the weightlifting lifestyle, and, they do start eating enough food for their body. They do start training their body in a way that would lead to hypertrophy and muscle gain. And they do achieve these very drastic transformations, because you have to understand that in their before pictures, they were very unhealthy, right? They didn't have enough body fat. Their body was not performing, optimally from a hormonal standpoint. I didn't have my period back in that 2012 picture. There were all sorts of red flags that things were not going well. So I think that was one of the big factors, but more than anything, it was that I didn't fall prey to, just every trend that you see on Instagram. It wasn't that I was doing the big hardcore bulk. It wasn't that I was doing these, let's be honest here, bullshit workouts that you see a lot of people posting. I was just making gradual changes and staying consistent with it over time. And when you do that, you can see these very traumatic results, right?
Well, I want to say this before we go to break. You said a lot of important things here that we shouldn't just pass over. Number one, you mentioned doing compound movements, and I've always agreed with that. And it's the best way to put on muscle mass and the way to do it correctly. Number two, eating junk calories for the sake of eating junk calories is completely wrong. And as I always tell people, that's the utmost in bro science, because it's coming from a group of people from the bodybuilding world who thinks that taking drugs is an okay thing to do, which I always disagree with. And you can put on as much lean muscle mass starting from a lean position versus, and they'll say, oh no, bro, you got to understand, you got to get your insulin up, bro. You got to do this, bro. You got to do it. And it's all wrong and it's all backwards. And I really appreciate that you mention it in that way. Mike, we need to go to break, right?
Yes, let's take a quick break, but there's a plenty we need to talk about more with our guest, Abby Pollock. Vinny Tortorich filling in for Dr. Drew, and we are going to take a quick break.
All right, summer and dehydration is a very common problem. Even if you don't even realize it, whether you're exercising or lying on the beach, you can get dehydrated very, very easily. And the proper way to stay hydrated is with adequate balance of sodium, glucose, and water. Hydralyte does this better than any sports drink, and certainly better than water alone. Understand, water is just water. It doesn't have these solute products in it. Hydralyte, in fact, is the best oral rehydration I've ever seen. It comes in great flavors like orange, berry, and lemonade, available in a pre-mixed drink, a powder. I like the effervescent tablets. I wanted to invent that myself before Hydralyte came around. They got there first. Compared to sports drinks, Hydralyte delivers up to 4 times the electrolytes with 75% less sugar. Hydralyte solutions are appropriate for all ages, and each bottle or package includes easy-to-follow dosing instructions. You can get Hydralyte at Rite Aid or at Hydralyte.com, Hydralyte, Hydralyte.com/DRDREW. And for a limited time, our listeners will save 30% of Hydralyte. It's a great deal. Just click the banner on our website, use the code DRDREW18 at checkout. That is Hydralyte.com/Dr. Drew, and use the code Dr. Drew 18 at checkout. Hydralyte.
Welcome back to the one and only Swole Patrol. We have Abby Pollock joining us, and you talked about compound lifts and the importance that they have, and I couldn't agree with you more. Do you find, especially someone like you who focuses on female clientele, is it difficult to get them a lot of times, unless you're someone who has a lot of experience in fitness or bodybuilding? Oftentimes I find it really difficult to get women to get under a barbell and deadlift or squat.
Yeah, so it's something that I have to say has been improving a lot these past few years. One of the good things that I do think has come out of Instagram is the fact that women are seeing, okay, when you lift weights, it's not that you're going to start busting traps out of your ears. You're not going to turn into like the Hulk, right? Which before Instagram and before kind of the rise of social media, I think most women just kind of had the only visual was like, I don't even know where I first saw a female bodybuilder, but like that was the only thing I imagined when I first thought women in weights. So I think Instagram's really helped with it. But one of the other things that I think really helps is and I think where my channels first took off was when I started educating women about kind of the mechanics behind weightlifting, actually. And it was something that I found really interesting because within my engineering degree, I was in mechanical engineering, but I had a minor in bioengineering. So even though that kind of focused on, I guess, the inner systems of the body, right? So metabolism and systems within the body. We also did look at a bit of the biomechanics. And really, when you think about it, the human body can be approximated to a structure, right? And so I was able to kind of apply a lot of these techniques that I learned in my schooling to the human body. And it started to make sense. Okay, this movement is more knee dominant versus hip dominant. This is creating a larger moment arm or force around these muscles as compared to these muscles. And it makes sense why, a hip thrust would be better at hitting your glutes than a squat for these reasons. For me, it really just came down to, okay, engineering, this is your human body, this is a system. And when we actually break down what's going on, you can really simplify these movements and realize, okay, this is how my body is moving. This is how these muscles are supporting that. And by adjusting, either making subtle adjustments to your form or by selecting different exercises altogether, you can actually, this is what I love about weightlifting, you can design your body as you see fit. Like, it's literally, the way I first visualized it was like, I am a race car and I'm just swapping out different parts. I'm literally like adding what I want, taking out what I don't. And it's so cool when you actually understand the why behind what you're doing, because you are totally in control of your body. Like, as you can see, I am not somebody who is naturally the shape that I am now, but now that I've taken this time to learn about my body and actually practice that over time, I have built the physique that I want from scratch.
A truest statement has never been made, because I've always said, when you look at the great sculptors, Bernini and Michelangelo, these guys, it's not what they sculpted away, it's what they left behind that mattered. Yep. And I've always said that to clients who, they look at their body a certain way, and they'll go, I want this, I want that, and I want the other thing. And I'll say, okay, we need to work on your back. And they'll say, wait, I wanted a bigger chest. And I said, yeah, but if we don't get the symmetry, if we don't get the look right, none of it will look right. And they'll go, what are you talking about? I said, just trust me on this. And it's, when you look at someone, you have to look at their weak points in order to accentuate what they actually want to be as their strong points. I've always said a great set of abs don't really matter, because if you're just working the rectus abdominis, you're going to work a very small group of muscles. But if you work the lower part of the hip flexors and you get the serratus anterior correctly, then the abs will look right. Right? But if you just work the abs and you have the hip flexors not going in right and the serratus muscles aren't looking right, I always said, look at Stallone in First Blood Part 2 when he's completely ripped out. It's not from the rectus abdominis. It's from what's happening around the obliques and around the hip flexors, and really what's happening where the lats are coming around and
serratus area,
meeting right into the serratus. I mean, it's, the guy anatomically, he's perfect.
And it's funny you say that, because the back in particular is something that, women, the one thing they still aren't fully on board with is the upper body training. And that was a big mistake that I made kind of early on in my journey. And I got like these, let's be real, like kind of tree trunk legs and really thick thighs, and my upper body, like I don't even know if I have long arms, but they just looked like these noodles. Like I joked that I looked like Kermit the Frog. They were so skinny. And it kind of worked on the gram when you're like just popping booty all day, but it looked weird. And once I started building my back, not a lot, just kind of adding just enough, it did create that V taper. And I'm not somebody who's got, a naturally super small waist or super wide hips, but by building your back and by building, the glute medius and minimus, you are able to create that shape and that illusion of you have an hourglass shape, right? So women who don't feel like maybe it was in the genetic cards for them, weightlifting is this tool that you can use to transform yourself completely, right?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I've always said guys that want big biceps, I always tell them, work on your triceps. That's 3/5 of your arm. Except for Dr. Drew. He's completely different. The guy's got Popeye's arms.
Yeah.
Dr. Drew has ridiculous arms, but a lot of that's genetic. But at the same time, I think you guys are bringing up so much good information here. And the problem with wanting the mirror muscles to pop is that you have to overemphasize the non-mirror muscles,
right?
And no one wants to do that.
And by the way, I want to do the negative of what you were just saying. Any guy who thinks it's okay to work just his upper body and it looks like he's got dental floss hanging out of his shorts, never a good idea.
Don't do it. And for any guys that are listening, like a guy with a nice ass, like that's definitely something that will elevate you as a man. Like the number of women I've talked to at the gym who will be scoping out guys in jogger pants because they have a nice ass halfway across the gym, like it's a thing. Okay.
Well, let me say this. Back in 1985, I was working. It was my first job out of college. I was working
when Abby was born.
Abby wasn't even born yet. I was the trainer for Newman School. That's the school where they actually had two quarterbacks that ended up having pretty good pro careers. Peyton Manning and
Eli Manning.
Eli Manning.
Are you serious?
I coached those kids. And
God damn.
I coached Cooper Manning too. God. The older brother.
The one who's an electrician or something?
No, he was actually the best athlete of the group.
That's what they said. That's what Archie says. But I was like, well, you're just lying.
Archie's a friend. I can tell you that he was the best athlete. He had a bone marrow disorder and had to stop playing football in college. He was at Ole Miss.
Oh, my God.
I took him on spring break. He was on my spring break. I used to take all those kids to spring break.
Yeah?
But
they got nice pieces on them? Nice cock?
Good. But here's the crazy thing. When I was in that gym, right before spring break every year, all the boys would come in and start doing curls and push-ups and chest. And I would say, guys, what are you doing? It's like, hey, curls for the girls. I was saying, let me explain something to you. Not one girl will look at you when you're walking towards them on the beach. Every one of those women are going to wait for you to walk by and then check out your ass. So start doing squats and lunges.
Yep.
I agree completely with everything everyone just said. I also agree that people should squat and lunge. I also would like to put out there, though, if you're specifically targeting the glutes, I don't necessarily know if those are like they might be in my top 5. I don't know if I put them top 2.
As far as
isolation of glutes.
So
meaning what?
Meaning like if we were to actually measure activation with like machinery,
right?
Are those two? Because I'm a good squatter. I'm naturally a good squatter. I get fuck all out of it in my booty.
Really?
So it's not necessarily the glute activation levels, right? Because when you are at the bottom of a squat or when you are at the bottom of a lunge, there is a large degree of stretch in the glute muscle, right? And you are going to get a lot of activation kind of exploding out of that eccentric. But the thing, at least for women, that you want to look at, for guys, this doesn't seem to be as much of an issue. But what every girl seems to ask me about, and my first video that kind of hit it big, I guess, on YouTube was how to grow your butt without growing your thighs. Now, we're not going for that Kardashian ass, okay? But women want a proportionately larger butt than their thighs.
Right.
Right? You can do all the squats in the world. You can squat all day. You can deadlift all day. But what's going to happen, and what a lot of women have actually messaged me about, is that they find, yes, they're gaining size, right? They're getting muscular. They're getting more definition. But the actual definition from their thigh to their butt is not there. Like it's kind of like there was one woman who messaged me, and I wish I could pull up the message, but she's like, my ass looks like SpongeBob SquarePants, and I've got tree trunks down below that. And I'm like, you know what? That's probably the best visual I've ever heard, because that is what I see when I see women who just kind of squat and deadlift and overload those over time. And of course, with the squat, this is a movement that you can say it's a simple compound movement, but it really is complex depending on your unique biomechanics and your unique form and even the variations you do. But what's been shown in recent years and what's kind of been shown through a few studies, there's one guy who's really, really cool. If you want to look into another trainer who specializes on female training as well as athlete training, Brett Contreras. He's out of San Diego.
The glute god, Brett Contreras.
Yeah, the glute guy. Yeah. He's awesome. He's really cool. So I've been following him for a while, and a lot of what he does revolves around the hip thrust, right? Now, what's really cool about the hip thrust is that it basically removes your quads from the equation, and it keeps your hamstrings in a relatively shortened position so that you are able to create most of the hip extension movement via your glutes, right? So from a functional standpoint, it makes sense. And then through pretty much every EMG study that's been conducted, when you are comparing, the deadlift to the squat to the hip thrust, the max activation as well as the average activation throughout the range of motion of the glute has been higher on the hip thrust as compared to those other movements. Now, with that said, just because activation is larger on an exercise, it's all about context, right? It's all about, okay, great, but can I apply progressive overload to this movement? Yes,
Abby,
with the hip thrust.
Before Abby, can you hear me?
Yeah, go on it. Yeah, go for it.
Before you go on, I wish I could say I can't wait to hear the rest of the podcast. I have a heart out right now at 6:30, so I have to run. Man. And I apologize about that earlier conversation, but I love you and keep doing what you're doing. And I will listen to the rest of the podcast once it's out. Thanks.
Thank you, Vinny.
Yeah, no worries, man. Nice chatting with you.
You too. Bye-bye.
You're the man, Vin. Yeah. Thank you for coming in, dude. I appreciate it, dude. Get going. Thank you. All right, go ahead. Continue where you left off. Sorry about that.
So, yeah, no worries. So when you're actually looking at exercises, what you want to consider if you're looking to target the glutes are, okay, does it target the glutes? Yes, great. Can I get progressively stronger at this over time, right? And this one's a really important one because a common mistake that women fall into is, just doing glute kickbacks or just doing, the booty band exercises or just doing kind of like the donkey kickback machine at the gym. And they kind of get stuck in the cycle where, realistically, you're not really increasing the weight on that machine week after week. You're doing your 15 to 20 reps and kind of piecing out. But with something like the hip thrust, you can actually load a considerable amount of weight on that bar. I've seen that Brett Contreras guy. I think he loads it's something ridiculous, like 400 plus.
Yeah, he's got like a 430 pound hip thrust.
Dude's a beast. I mean, he's a massive guy too. But still, girls. I've seen a few girls who've been busting out 300 pound sets, 250 pound sets. So it's definitely something that you can progress in weight over time, which when you actually look at what drives muscle growth and what drives hypertrophy, it is by increasing that volume over time and getting stronger on those key movements. So I think the hip thrust is a really good staple. It makes up the staple of most of my training plans that I do via the TFN team and also my personal training programs. But that's not to say, and I think, again, it's important to just kind of take this all with a grain of salt. It's not to say that the squat is not a good movement. It's not to say that the deadlift is not a good movement. I think that all of these have their place in a routine, but I don't think that they should be the number one focus, right? Unless you're a power lifter who has to be lifting these for your big lifts, or unless power lifter is the main thing I can think of, or unless it has some crossover to another sport, I don't think that it should be kind of like the staple as many of these, I guess, media outlets say, squat booty or 30-day squat challenge. It's definitely, they don't deliver the results that so many people claim they do. That's for sure.
Right. No, I think it's, definitely something to point out because so much of the Instagram is all about the hashtag, squat girls, squat this, squat that. And I'm not shitting on squats. I'm a big believer in it. They help build practically everything I've done. But I think when you're trying to really focus on the glutes, I just wanted to kind of get into the weeds of it and point out, especially, the hip thrust is, is so fantastic.
Is this the hip thrust?
That is a hip thrust. Yes, okay. Susan has found it.
I'm on your Instagram.
But that is not a barbell hip thrust, which is what
I'm
Abby
getting
was
inspired by her Instagram.
You should. I'm getting blood flow from her Instagram.
He had a heart out, and you have a heart.
I have a heart.
Oh my god!
Are you someone who worked with fasting at all?
Yeah, so I've been doing intermittent fasting for I think I actually started fasting around the same time I started TFN team. So couple years back now. And yeah, I love it. I practice about usually around a 16-8, but now that I've kind of settled into it, some days I'll go longer. Sometimes I'll go a little less, just kind of by feel.
Yeah, and for those of you who are unfamiliar, 16-8 meaning 16 hours of not eating and then an 8-hour feeding window, which is something that I practice, and I'm a big believer. I got bestowed upon me by Martin Burkhan, the guy, kind of the godfather of intermittent fasting. But it has been hard, at least from studies I've seen. It's tougher for women to go for that longer fasting block, but you have a different level of discipline, that's for sure.
So for women, it's not necessarily harder from like an immediate standpoint, right? It's more so kind of the longer term hormonal effects it can have. And some of them, basically when you're fasting, your body has a bit of a stress response, right? Whenever, you don't feed your body, or whenever you kind of push your body outside of its normal environment, whether that's through exercise or food, whatever you're doing, you're going to have a stress response, right? And in general, it's not just fasting, but in general, stress impacts women's sex hormones a little bit more. Right. So it can mess with your period. It can mess with some mood related factors. The main impact that I found when I actually reviewed the literature behind it was it influencing women's sleep patterns, which was kind of weird. It basically makes you a little bit more restless at night and can complicate sleep if you're pairing fasting with a bit more of an aggressive calorie deficit. But in the short term, it's definitely something that women can do and that they can do safely. What I found when I was looking into the literature was that when women experienced issues, it was usually when fasting was being paired with, in the first place, an unhealthy calorie deficit, right? Which if you pair fasting, that's already a stressor with a really significant calorie deficit, another stressor. Of course, you're going to have a bad outcome. You're not going to have a good time, right? So that I definitely wouldn't recommend, but something that I actually love about fasting, and this isn't built right into my programs. I don't really believe in kind of forcing that sort of lifestyle on anybody. But what I really liked about it, coming from kind of a past of dealing with eating disorders, was that I had, even once I'd consider myself, out of the red zone with an eating disorder, right? I still had kind of a weird relationship with food, right? Eating disorders are a weird thing. I'm not convinced that you ever really get to like 100%. I think it's just kind of, I don't think anybody's at 100% with their relationship with food. I think a lot of people have some really messed up habits that they're not aware of. It's more of like a spectrum where like anorexia and bulimia are on the one end, and then, kind of like the happiest, most mindful eating person is on the other end.
Well, I think you make a good point, especially women in America and Canada. Is there anyone who's fully healthy? Is there anyone who's fully connected to food in a positive way? I mean, I don't
think anyone is.
Yeah. I think we're raised that way. So what do you eat on the non-fasting time? For that 8 hours, what do you eat?
So what's cool about that is because you're eating in a compressed time frame, you can basically, you're having less meals, right? So you can eat larger portions at each meal, which is nice because I'm definitely somebody my boyfriend eats a lot of food, so I like being able to kind of keep up. So on any given day, I don't really follow any sort of a meal plan, but I do love salads. I'm one of those sick people who actually love salad. So usually I'll have some sort of fully loaded up salad with a source of lean protein for my first meal. I was actually just in Phoenix. I don't know if you guys have this in Cali. It's called like Mad Greens or something. I was obsessed. I was like, oh my goodness. It was the best salad restaurant I'd ever been to.
So you can't have a cheeseburger? Is it like cheeseburger worthy? Or?
You know what? I'm not sure. I'm still learning all the chains in the States because we have literally nothing in Canada, but it was really cool. And they had, they had just all these salad combos, right? And they had all these fancy dressings and stuff. So usually like a fully loaded up salad, none of that depressing like lettuce and tomato type stuff. Then I'll usually eat 2 meals a day. Then my second meal is usually something a little bit more substantial. So again, depending on the day, it might be something like a lean protein plus like a flatbread pizza plus some greens, or it might be, trying to think of what I've been eating the past few days. It's been a bit off because I've been away. What else did I eat? I had pizza, like some variation of pizza every day for like the past week.
Oh, you're my girl. You are my girl.
And if you have kids, it just works into the schedule.
It just works out so perfectly.
You know what? And that's what I love about it, because I find that so many people, they focus on the micro stuff. They're like, okay, what's the best food for weight loss? Or what's the best way to meal prep? Or what time of day should I be eating, right? And it's so much micromanaging. And when you already have so much other stuff going on in your life, I feel like that's part of what contributes to people just throwing in the towel. It's like, it's too much. I can't remember to eat this like green drink 5 times a day. I can't meal prep for like an hour every day. I can't do this. And what I love about intermittent fasting is, as somebody who has kind of fixated on food before, I literally don't think about food. Like I really don't think about it. I don't obsess over it. I don't I get cravings, but I never kind of get them to the point where I'm like, I have to eat this now. Like I cannot continue with my day.
Are you allowed to have coffee in the morning?
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness, girl. Yes, I definitely drink coffee. I've actually had to cut back. I did a little bit of like a coffee, a coffee detox. Like I kind of cut it out for, I guess, a few weeks. I think it was last month or the month before, because my tolerance had just gotten not at a good point. But now I'm back to like my 1 cup or whatever, I guess, a grande at Starbucks is, whatever that means.
That's insane. I have 1 cup every hour for all hours.
That's where I was, and I'm like, okay, I can't keep doing this. A, it's expensive, and B, I don't want to be this crazy neurotic lady.
No, I hear you. But one of these days you're gonna have children, and then you'll realize that it'll become your only. It becomes your only love. Your only.
I know
passion.
I'm gonna be a crazy mom. Like I already know I'm gonna be an absolutely psychotic mom.
I listen, I'm a big proponent of intermittent fasting, but I understand, even as a guy who says if you're going to do it, do it. The best reason for it is something that you touched on. I was so tired coming from the bodybuilding world. I was so tired of having 6-7 meals a day that none of them satisfied me. I'd rather have 2 or 3 where I could really sit down and feel full. And that is something that works for me. I'm not someone who's going to sit down and shit on eating 8 times a day, because I know plenty of people, men and women, who have gotten fucking shredded doing it. It's like a lot of, and I wanted to get your take on that. That was, the whole reason of going into that whole personal story was a lot of adherence to dieting is, does it work for you? Yeah. And have you found that having the variability to apply that to your clients, like some things are going to work for some people, some things just ain't going to work for that person.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely kind of different. I guess I'd call it like eating personalities. Like you, I'm not somebody who likes to eat like just kind of pick at stuff all day. If I picked at stuff all day, I'd literally eat like enough food for a family of 4. I'm not somebody who can just graze like that. I definitely prefer the large, satiating meals that leave me feeling full. But there have been women that I've met who are kind of the grazing type. Like my sister growing up, we could not be more opposite. And she's somebody who can just kind of like walk by a candy bowl and eat like 1 M&M. Like she's that type of person. I've met that type of person before who, intermittent fasting probably wouldn't be for them. But then there's people more like us, and there's people kind of everywhere in between on that spectrum of preferences. So by just kind of learning about the tools, right? And that's why I'm not like hell bent on the calories in versus calories out thing. I know that Vin's obviously found an approach that's worked for him and worked for his clients. And, I've got an approach that I really love, but even though I have this approach now, what I really believe in more than anything is having an open mind and a flexible approach to your fitness, right? This is a lifelong journey. If you want to be fit for the rest of your life and healthy, and, your life is going to change. You might have kids at one point, you might change jobs, like stuff's going to change. And so I think it's more productive, rather than clinging to like a single ideology, to instead educate yourself about, okay, well, like this is intermittent fasting. These are the pros. These are the cons. This is the, bodybuilding approach of eating like 8 times a day. These are the pros. These are the cons. And learning about each approach so that, when that time in your life comes, or if things change, you can apply the right tools at the right time, and you're not kind of left like scrambling or feeling desperate. Right.
Right. Well, I mean, Susan, unless I know that you're now as obsessed with Abby's Instagram as I am, unless you have any other questions, I'm going to let this woman get back to her day, because it's been fantastic, honestly, talking to you.
I think I've done every single one of these diets, and they all work.
Yeah, they all.
Just doing it,
I can't recommend, whether you're a woman or not. I think there's a lot that can be taken away from all the oogling aside and all the funny jokes. I appreciate looking at the pictures of Abby, but there's a lot of very, very, very meaty, very weighty, very good information that comes from Abby's social media. She is at
YouTube.
At AMPOLLO on Instagram, transformationnationtv.com. Am I correct? Is that the best website to?
Probably go to trans.fo /tool. That's just our short link. It's way easier to type in.
Okay. Give it one more time.
Trans, exactly as it sounds, .fo/tool. That's the best way to get to our site. And then YouTube is Abby Pollock, plain and simple.
I really do appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Appreciate it. Take it easy. Thank you sincerely for making this show a success. And it's all because of you, the followers and the listeners. Please tell a friend. Let them know that it's the best place to find health and fitness information with a nice little peppering of entertainment. Hey, everybody. It is the Swole Patrol podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Mike Catherwood. And Dr. Drew is at Dr. Drew, of course. Join the email list today. Send your questions. drdrew.com/contact. And put Swole at the top of the email so we can get your comments. And this will get you a weekly email reminder with a link to this show and all the great shows that Dr. Drew and I do and all the shows that Dr. Drew does by himself and, of course, with Adam Carolla, the great Ace Man. Please tell a friend and subscribe on iTunes. Don't forget to rate us 5 stars. And on Podbean or Google Play. All 3 help us out. We also are on YouTube/Dr. Drew, and hope you can give us all your comments, even if you're a troll and you want to destroy our feelings and our emotions. Support our sponsors and the show. Click on the banners on drdrew.com for the links to products for special discounts for the products Dr. Drew and I endorse 100%. Send questions and comments to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Swole Patrol Podcast, or on Twitter at Swole Patrol Pod. Also, browse drdrew.com for the This Life podcast that I co-host on occasion and all the other shows available like Adam and Dr. Drew and the This Life podcast. A lot of great stuff. Don't forget to check me out on K-Rock in the mornings on the Kevin and Bean Show. And be good. Be swole. #Swole Patrol.